Hi there. Welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight, we step into the shadows of an unsolved enigma. A shattered pocket watch, frozen at a mysterious hour, lying beside a body that should never have been there. Was it a clue left behind by a desperate victim? Or the carefully planted trap of a cunning murderer? Every tick of this broken watch whispers a secret, and Hercule Poirot is about to untangle the truth hidden within its silence. So, sit back, dim the lights, and prepare yourself for a journey into one of Poirot's most perplexing cases, the Enigma of the Broken Watch. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you never miss the mysteries that await here on Haunting Vales. Chapter 1. The Silent Witness. The chill of an English October morning clung to the air as Hercule Poirot adjusted the impeccable angle of his hat and peered across the fog-draped platform of King's Cross Station. He was, as always, a figure of fastidious elegance, the mustaches waxed to perfection, the patent leather shoes gleaming as though polished by angels. The bustle of travelers swirled around him, porters shouting, the shrill whistle of a departing train, the rustle of newspapers proclaiming scandals and society weddings. Yet Poirot stood serene, his sharp little eyes missing nothing. It was not often that Hercule Poirot found himself without a case. The weeks since his last triumph had been curiously quiet, too quiet for a man who thrived upon puzzles. He had, in idle moments, thought back to earlier triumphs. The delicate unraveling of the mysterious affair at Styles, the strange alibis aboard the murder on the Orient Express, and even that curious holiday upon the death on the Nile. Each case had satisfied his little gray cells, and yet left him longing for the next. This morning, however, promised only the company of his old friend, Captain Arthur Hastings, who had written from the country, begging Poirot to visit. Hastings's letter had been cheerful enough, though beneath the jovial tone Poirot detected a touch of urgency. The words, "There is something I cannot quite explain, perhaps you will laugh at me, Poirot, but I should value your opinion," lingered in his mind. Poirot never laughed at the instincts of Hastings. The good captain's observations, though often wrapped in simplicity, had led more than once to the very heart of truth. The express to market basing arrived with a hiss of steam. Poirot, gathering his valise, stepped aboard. The carriage smelled faintly of coal and damp wool coats. Settling into his seat, he allowed himself the rare indulgence of closing his eyes, listening to the rhythmic clatter of wheels on rails. Time, he reflected, was the one constant in a world of deception. And yet, was it? When Hastings greeted him at the station, his friend was all smiles, though a certain preoccupation lingered about his manner. Hastings had aged, as they both had, yet retained the bluff good humor and soldierly bearing Poirot remembered from their earliest meeting. "My dear Poirot," Hastings cried, gripping his hand warmly, "it does me good to see you. The countryside has been too quiet, and I feared you were buried in London with no thought for your old friends." "Mon ami," Poirot replied, "for the true detective, there is always thought of the old friends. But you spoke of a matter which troubles you." Hastings hesitated. "Yes, it is the strangest thing, and I cannot decide if it is of any consequence, or merely the fancy of an old soldier's mind. But come, you must meet the others first. We are staying at the house of Sir Charles Davenant, a fellow I knew from my regiment. A splendid chap. But," Hastings paused, lowering his voice, "something has unsettled the household. I thought you might wish to see for yourself." The Davenant estate rose beyond rolling fields and a line of oaks, an imposing Georgian structure with pale stone walls and rows of windows reflecting the muted sky. Servants hurried about the courtyard as the motor car drew up, and Poirot descended with a bow of thanks to the chauffeur. Inside, Sir Charles Davenant was a genial host, broad-shouldered, with a hearty laugh of a man who had seen campaigns and returned with honors. Lady Davenant, slender and reserved, greeted them with courtesy, though her eyes bore traces of sleepless nights. Around the hearth of the drawing-room gathered several others. Evelyn Davenant, their spirited daughter, who regarded Poirot with open curiosity, Dr. Andrew Keene, a local physician and old family friend, and finally, Mr. Alfred Langley, a solicitor of severe aspect, whose black suit seemed to drink in the firelight. Introductions passed, and tea was served. Poirot, ever attentive to the smallest detail, noticed the glances exchanged between Lady Davenant and the solicitor, the restlessness of young Evelyn, and the way Sir Charles's hearty manner seemed a shade too hearty. Something, indeed, disturbed the household. It was Hastings who drew Poirot aside after the first pleasantries. "Do you recall, Poirot," he said quietly, "my mentioning a curious matter in my letter? It concerns a watch. A broken watch, to be exact." "Uh-huh." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Tell me everything." Hastings produced from his pocket a small object, carefully wrapped in a handkerchief. Unfolding the linen, he revealed a silver watch, its face cracked, the glass shattered. The hand was stopped precisely at 3:20. "I found it," Hastings explained, "in the old library yesterday morning. It does not belong to Sir Charles or any of the family, so far as I know. No servant claims it either. It was lying beneath the table, almost hidden by the carpet. I cannot imagine how it came there, or why." Poirot took the watch delicately between finger and thumb. His eyes narrowed. "It is a fine make. Swiss. Yet it is curious, the manner in which the glass is broken. Observe, Hastings, not a fall upon the floor, but a blow struck deliberately." Hastings frowned. "Deliberately? You think someone meant to break it?" Poirot nodded slowly. "Yes, and more. The hand's at 20 minutes past 3. It is too neat, too exact. A broken watch may stop. Yes, but rarely it's so dramatic a moment. Nah, mon ami, this watch is not merely broken. It is posed. It is a silent witness." Their conversation was interrupted by Lady Davenant, who entered swiftly, her face pale. "Captain Hastings," she said, "I wonder if you might join Sir Charles in the study. He has something urgent to discuss." Hastings excused himself, leaving Poirot alone with Lady Davenant. For a moment, neither spoke. Poirot studied her face, the tightness at the corners of her mouth, the shadow of fear in her eyes. "You are troubled, madam," Poirot said gently. "May I be of service?" She hesitated, as though upon the brink of confession. Then, with a forced smile, she replied, "You are kind, Monsieur Poirot. It is nothing, merely household affairs." Poirot bowed, but in his mind he was certain it was not nothing. A shadow lay across this house, and at its heart was the enigma of the broken watch. That evening, as the household gathered for dinner, Poirot observed in silence. The conversation was lively enough, Sir Charles recounting old campaigns, Evelyn chattering of London fashions, but beneath the surface ran an undercurrent of tension. The solicitor, Langley, spoke little, yet watched everyone keenly. Dr. Keene seemed distracted, his gaze often drifting to Lady Davenant with something like concern, and Lady Davenant herself, pale, restless, fingers tapping against her wine glass, seemed as though waiting for some calamity. After the meal, Poirot strolled alone through the library. The fire crackled softly, shadows flickering across the shelves. He stood by the great oak table where Hastings had found the watch. The carpet bore no mark of disturbance, yet Poirot's eyes searched every corner. On the mantelpiece rested an assortment of ornaments, a silver candlestick, a porcelain figurine, and, most curious of all, an empty space where dust suggested something had been removed. Poirot bent closer. "So," he murmured, "something has gone missing, and in its place a broken watch, abandoned like a challenge." The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 9. The deep, resonant notes filled the room. Poirot straightened, mustaches twitching. Time again. Always time. Later, in his guest chamber, Poirot sat at the small writing desk, the broken watch before him. He examined it under the lamplight, every detail speaking to him. The jagged crack of the glass, the dent upon the casing, the unnatural stillness of the hands. He could almost hear the voice of the watch, whispering secrets of the hour when it had been struck. There was, he reflected, an echo here of past puzzles. In the clocks, had not timepieces been arranged to deceive? And in the matter of the murder of Roger Ackroyd, was not time itself the central lie? Poirot's lips curved in a thin smile. Yes, always it comes back to time. The door creaked. Evelyn Davenant stood there, her face pale, eyes wide. Monsieur Poirot, she whispered, I must speak to you. Please, tomorrow may be too late. Poirot rose at once, guiding her inside, closing the door softly. Mademoiselle, you are afraid. Tell me of what? Her hands trembled as she held them together. It is father and mother, and, oh, I dare not say too much. Only this. If you value their safety, do not trust Mr. Langley. He is not what he seems. Poirot inclined his head gravely. Merci, mademoiselle. You have done well to confide in me. From the corridor beyond came the sound of footsteps. Evelyn started, her courage faltering. With a hurried glance, she slipped away, vanishing into the shadows. Poirot was left alone with the broken watch, the silence, and a growing certainty that the true hour of danger had not yet struck. And somewhere in the depths of the house, a clock ticked steadily on, marking the minutes until revelation. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Drawing Room. The morning light crept into the Davenant estate with a reluctant pallor, illuminating the heavy draperies and the silver-framed portraits that lined the great hall. Hercule Poirot rose at his customary early hour, dressing with his usual precision. As he arranged the folds of his tie and smoothed his mustaches to their impeccable curve, he reflected upon the events of the night. Evelyn Davenant's frightened confession still echoed in his ears. Do not trust Mr. Langley. Such words, he knew, were not lightly spoken. And yet, one must never accept such declarations at face value. A young woman might be swayed by emotion or by suspicion unfounded. Still, Poirot's little gray cells warned him that something indeed was amiss. Descending to the breakfast room, he found Captain Hastings already engaged with eggs and bacon, his good-natured face half concealed behind the morning paper. Ah, Poirot, Hastings exclaimed cheerfully. Slept well, I trust? It's a fine day, though I fancy the fog will return by evening. Poirot inclined his head, taking a seat. The sleep, mon ami, was not as profound as I could wish. One's dreams were disturbed. Hastings looked up in surprise. Dreams? You, Poirot? I should think nothing would disturb your rest. Poirot sipped his coffee thoughtfully. On the contrary, Hastings, even the mind of Hercule Poirot, is not immune to unease. And in this house, unease is thick, like the fog you speak of. At that moment Lady Davenant entered, her step hesitant. She greeted them with a faint smile, yet her pallor was more pronounced than the day before. She barely touched the food upon her plate. Poirot, watching keenly, noted the trembling of her hands as she reached for her teacup. Soon Sir Charles joined them, jovial as ever, though his laugh carried an edge too sharp, like glass beneath velvet. Capital to have you both here, he declared, clapping Hastings on the shoulder. We shall put some life into the place. The house has been altogether too gloomy of late. Gloomy? Poirot's eyes flickered. But why so, Sir Charles? Surely all here is well. Sir Charles's gaze wavered, then steadied. Oh, mere household concerns. My solicitor and I have been in long discussions. Tiresome business matters, nothing more. He gave a short laugh. Langley is a devil for detail, but such is his trade. Poirot inclined his head politely, yet he noted the way Lady Davenant's eyes dropped, as though to conceal a truth too heavy to meet the light. After breakfast, Poirot and Hastings wandered into the drawing room, a large chamber lined with French windows that looked upon the autumn garden. The air smelled faintly of polish and roses. Here the household gathered through the morning, conversing idly, though beneath the polite words ran a current of whispers, unspoken but sensed. Evelyn Davenant, dressed in a gown of pale blue, stood near the window, gazing out with an expression that spoke of longing. Poirot approached her gently. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "you honor me with your confidence last night. If there is more you wish to tell, now is the moment." She turned, startled, then shook her head. "I should not have spoken. It was foolish. Please forget what I said." "Foolish?" Poirot raised a brow. "Non. The instincts of youth are often sharper than the reasoning of age. But I understand. You fear to say more." Her eyes met his for a moment, filled with silent appeal, then drifted away. "Perhaps later." "Perhaps." Her words faltered as Alfred Langley entered the room. The solicitor moved with precise steps, his black suit immaculate, his thin lips pressed in a line that never quite approached a smile. He carried a leather portfolio beneath one arm, which he set deliberately upon the table. "Sir Charles," he announced, "we must speak regarding the codicil to your will. Certain alterations must be made without delay." Lady Davenant's teacup clattered faintly in her saucer. Evelyn's face paled. Sir Charles frowned, but after a moment's hesitation, he rose. "Very well, Langley. We'll go to the study." The two men departed, leaving behind a silence more oppressive than words. Lady Davenant set down her cup with trembling fingers. Poirot leaned toward Hastings, murmuring so only his friend could hear. "You see, mon ami, the matter of inheritance, it casts long shadows. Already, the watch, the fear of the young lady, the unease of the mother, all point toward affairs of money and death." Hastings frowned. "Do you really think so, Poirot? It all seems a bit, well, ordinary business, you know." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon cher, nothing is ordinary when people speak in whispers and watches are broken at precise hours." The morning drifted into noon, and Poirot excused himself from the company. He wished to revisit the library. Alone within its paneled walls, he examined again the place where the broken watch had been found. His gaze moved across the shelves, the carpet, the mantelpiece with its curious empty space. He stooped, scrutinizing the fibers of the rug. Yes, there was a faint scuff mark, as though furniture had been shifted. Something had been moved recently. He straightened, mustaches twitching. Always, it is the small detail that betrays the great crime. The sound of the door opening interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Andrew Keene entered, starting slightly at the sight of Poirot. "Ah, Monsieur Poirot," the physician said, forcing a smile. "I did not expect to find you here. Yet here I am," Poirot replied mildly. "You are a friend of the family, yes?" "Yes, indeed. I have known Lady Davenant since childhood. Sir Charles is a most respected patient of mine." His tone was cordial, yet a tension lay beneath. "Is there some matter troubling you?" Poirot regarded him steadily. "A watch, doctor. A broken watch, discovered here. It interests me." Dr. Keene laughed shortly. "A trifle, surely. Such things are found in any house." "Perhaps." Poirot inclined his head. "But trifles, as a certain great detective has observed, are the very essence of detection." The doctor's eyes flickered. Then he excused himself hastily, leaving Poirot once more alone. Poirot's little gray cells stirred. Why should a country doctor be so discomposed at mention of a broken watch? That evening, the family gathered again in the drawing room. The fire burned brightly, yet the atmosphere was heavy. Hastings attempted to lighten matters with a tale of their adventures in South America, but conversation faltered. It was then that Poirot, leaning forward, spoke deliberately. "Miss Amos, may I ask, does any here claim ownership of the watch that Captain Hastings discovered?" A hush fell. Sir Charles looked puzzled. "A watch? I know nothing of it." Lady Davenant's hands clenched in her lap. I have never seen such a thing." Evelyn shook her head quickly. Dr. Keene remained silent, and Langley, the solicitor, narrowed his eyes, then said coldly, "If the object is of no value, it scarcely matters who owned it." "On the contrary," Poirot said softly, "the matter is of the greatest importance. For this watch, it does not merely mark the passing of time. It marks a moment, a very precise moment, when something happened." Lady Davenant gave a faint cry, rising abruptly. "I cannot endure this." She swept from the room, her skirts brushing the carpet. Evelyn made as though to follow, but Langley's cold gaze stopped her. Poirot watched them all in silence. The tension had broken the surface at last. Something was concealed within this household, something bound to the broken watch. Later, as the guests dispersed, Poirot walked the corridor alone. From behind the door of the study came the low murmur of voices, Sir Charles and Langley, speaking in urgent tones. Poirot paused, listening. Words drifted through the wood. "Codicil, danger. Too late if he knows." Poirot's brows rose. "Ah, yes. Always the whispers, always the shadows." The watch ticked silently in his pocket, though its hands were frozen. And yet, he thought, perhaps it ticked in another way, in the hearts of those who feared its truth. As he turned to retire, a faint sound caught his ear, the muffled sobbing of a woman. Poirot followed the sound to a small alcove near the stair. There sat Evelyn, her face buried in her hands. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently. She looked up, her eyes wet with tears. "Monsieur Poirot, I cannot bear it. There is something terrible in this house, something father will not admit. The watch, it is not the first sign. There have been others. Strange letters, threats. Threats." Poirot's voice sharpened. "Yes, father burned them, said they were nonsense. But I know better. I have seen the fear in mother's eyes." Poirot placed a hand lightly upon her shoulder. "Courage, mademoiselle. Already, the truth begins to show itself. The whispers will grow louder until they can no longer be denied." In his room that night, Poirot sat again before the broken watch. The hand still pointed to 20 minutes past 3. What had happened at that hour? Who had chosen it? Who wished to conceal or to reveal something? His mind returned to earlier cases. The clocks, where timepieces had been arranged to mislead, appointment with death, where an hour had concealed a crime of the past, even murder in Mesopotamia, where alibis turned upon minutes. Time, always time. He leaned back, closing his eyes. "It is simple," he murmured. "All is simple when one sees clearly. But for now, the watch remains the silent witness. Tomorrow, perhaps, it will speak." Outside, the wind stirred through the oaks, and the house settled into uneasy slumber. Yet in its halls lingered whispers, whispers in the drawing room, whispers in the study, whispers that hinted of secrets too dangerous to remain long hidden. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen, a figure listened as well, smiling in the darkness, waiting for the hour to strike again. Chapter 3. The Watchmaker's Secret. The dawn broke pale and cold over the Davenant estate, the lawns silvered with frost, the oaks standing like sentinels against a whitening sky. Hercule Poirot rose earlier than usual, his mind restless with questions. The broken watch lay upon his bedside table, its fractured face gleaming faintly in the morning light. It seemed to him that the object almost demanded attention, as though it were less a clue than a voice, silently insisting upon its story. After a meticulous grooming of his mustaches and the donning of his finest gray suit, Poirot descended to the breakfast room. Hastings was already there, cheerfully attacking a plate of ham. Sir Charles, too, was present, but his joviality seemed strained, as though it were a mask stretched too tightly over unease. Lady Davenant had not yet appeared. "Poirot," Hastings began, lowering his voice as Poirot took his seat, "I had the queerest dream last night. I dreamt of the watch, only it wasn't broken. It was ticking away, loud as a drum, and when I looked at it, the hands spun backwards." Poirot raised his brows. "Dreams, mon ami, are the theater of the subconscious. Yours tells us that you feel the past weighs heavily here." "The past?" Hastings frowned. "What do you mean?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "We shall see." The door opened, and Lady Davenant entered, pale as parchment, her eyes shadowed. She murmured her greetings, but touched none of the food. Poirot watched her carefully. Each morning she seemed more fragile, more haunted. It was then that Alfred Langley entered, portfolio in hand as always. He bowed curtly, addressing Sir Charles. "If you will permit, Sir Charles, we must resume our discussion this afternoon. Certain signatures are required." "Very well, Langley," Sir Charles replied gruffly. "We shall attend to it after luncheon." Langley's eyes flickered toward Poirot, cold and measuring, before he withdrew. Poirot sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Sir Charles, may I trouble you for the address of a watchmaker in the village?" "A watchmaker?" Sir Charles looked puzzled. "There is old Mr. Barrow, in Market Basing. Been there for decades." "But why?" Poirot spread his hands. "Because, my dear Sir Charles, every watch has a maker, and sometimes it has an owner inscribed upon it." Sir Charles stared. "You mean this broken watch?" "Precisely." Poirot's smile was thin. "It is time we let the watch speak for itself." That afternoon, Poirot and Hastings took the motor car to Market Basing. The village lay nestled among rolling hills, its cobbled streets lined with modest shops. The watchmaker's establishment was a small, dimly lit place, its windows cluttered with clocks of every size, their ticking filling the air with a chorus of time. Behind the counter stood Mr. Barrow, a stooped old man with spectacles perched upon his nose and fingers stained with brass dust. "Good day, gentlemen," he croaked. "What can I do for you?" Poirot produced the broken watch, laying it gently upon the counter. "You are perhaps acquainted with this piece, monsieur." Mr. Barrow adjusted his spectacles, peering closely. "Ah, a fine Swiss movement, though damaged now. Let me see. Ah, yes, indeed. I recall this one." Poirot leaned forward. "You recall it? To whom did it belong?" The old man tapped the casing, turning it over. "It was brought to me for repair. Oh, must be 3 years ago. Belonged to a gentleman. Name of Edmund Drake. Fine fellow, I thought. But he never returned for it." Hastings looked astonished. "Never returned?" "Indeed," the watchmaker said. "I kept it for months, waiting. Wrote to his address, but the letter was returned. At last, I set it aside, forgotten. Strange that it should appear now, broken like this." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Edmund Drake, you say? And who was he?" Mr. Barrow frowned. "A stranger to these parts. Said he was a scholar, researching local history. Spent some time with the Davenant family, I believe. After that, gone, vanished. Some said he went abroad. Others, well, there were whispers." "Whispers?" Poirot prompted. "That he had enemies. That he knew too much." Poirot lifted the watch delicately. "Merci, monsieur. You have been most helpful." As they left the shop, Hastings looked perplexed. "Edmund Drake? Never heard the name. What could he have to do with the Davenants?" Poirot's mustaches twitched. "Ah, Hastings, but that is the question. Why should the watch of a vanished man find its way beneath the table in the Davenant library? Why should it be broken at the hour of 3:20? There is a story here, and it is written not in words, but in time." Back at the estate, the atmosphere was heavier still. Sir Charles was closeted with Langley, while Lady Davenant remained in her chamber. Evelyn, however, intercepted Poirot in the corridor, her eyes alight with fear. "You have learned something," she whispered. "Perhaps, mademoiselle. Tell me, do you know the name Edmund Drake?" She started visibly. "Yes. He came here years ago. A historian, I think. Father invited him. But something happened. There was a quarrel. He left suddenly, and we never saw him again." Poirot inclined his head. "And yet, his watch is here, in your library, broken. What was the quarrel, mademoiselle?" Evelyn hesitated. "I do not know. I only know that mother was greatly distressed after he left. And father, he forbade us ever to speak of Mr. Drake again." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Just so. Always, when a name is forbidden, it conceals a truth too dangerous for the light." That evening, the household gathered once more in the drawing-room. Poirot sat quietly, observing. Sir Charles smoked a cigar, his manner forced. Lady Davenant sat pale and silent. Evelyn embroidered, though her hands trembled upon the needle. Langley worked over his papers, precise as ever. Dr. Keen stared into the fire, lost in thought. Poirot rose suddenly, holding the broken watch aloft. "Mess Amos," he said softly, "I have learned whose watch this was. It belonged to Edmund Drake." A collective shudder passed through the room. Lady Davenant gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Evelyn dropped her embroidery. Sir Charles sprang to his feet, face dark with anger. "Damnation, Poirot! How dare you speak that name in my house?" Poirot's voice was calm. "Because, Sir Charles, the name is already in your house. It lingers in the whispers, in the shadows, and in this watch. You may forbid speech of him, but you cannot silence the evidence." Lady Davenant rose suddenly, her composure shattered. "Please, Charles, no more concealment. He must know." Sir Charles turned upon her, his voice low but fierce. "Silence, Margaret, for the family's honor." But Poirot's gaze cut through his protest. "Non, Sir Charles. For the family's salvation, the truth must be spoken. Who is Edmund Drake, and why does his watch return now, broken at 3:20? The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the great clock upon the mantel. At last, Lady Davenant whispered, "He was more than a scholar. He was," she faltered, glancing at Evelyn. "He was a danger." Poirot bowed his head slightly. "Yes, a danger then, and perhaps still a danger now." Sir Charles strode to the decanter, pouring himself a measure of brandy with shaking hands. "Very well," he muttered. "If you must know, Drake sought something that was not his. He pried where he should not, and he paid the price." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And what price was that, Sir Charles? Tell me, did he vanish of his own accord, or was he made to vanish?" No one answered. The fire crackled, the clock ticked, and in the silence Poirot felt the house tremble with secrets long suppressed. Later, in his chamber, Poirot sat once more with the watch. He turned it over carefully, noting at last the faint engraving upon the inside of the case. "E.D. until the last hour." "Until the last hour," Poirot murmured. "Mon Dieu, what hour? Was it 20 minutes past 3? Was it yesterday? Or is it yet to come?" His little gray cells stirred with excitement. The watch was not merely a relic of the past. It was a herald of the present. And soon it would point, not to what had been, but to what was yet to be. Chapter 4: Shadows of the Past. The night had been long, oppressive, and filled with uneasy whispers. Hercule Poirot slept little, his mind circling endlessly around the broken watch, the forbidden name of Edmund Drake, and the palpable fear that seemed to seep from the very walls of the Davenant estate. By morning, the sky was heavy with low, gray clouds, and a chill mist clung to the grounds like a shroud. The following morning, the household gathered with uneasy formality, each person seated at the long mahogany table beneath the stern gaze of ancestral portraits. The clink of cutlery on porcelain plates sounded unnaturally loud, filling the silences that no polite remark could bridge. Conversation was sparse, guarded, and tinged with an invisible weight, as though every word might carry double meaning. Beneath the polished silver and starched linen, mistrust lingered like a shadow, and the performance of family unity was nothing more than a fragile mask stretched thin over deeper fractures. Poirot observed them all, his eyes bright and calculating. He noted the tightness of Sir Charles's jaw, the nervous tapping of Langley's fingers, the way Evelyn avoided looking at anyone directly. The shadows of the past were not merely memories. They were alive, pulsing, threatening to break through the veneer of civility. After the meal, Poirot requested a private word with Lady Davenant. She agreed reluctantly, and he was shown into her chamber. The room was dim, the curtains half drawn, the air faint with the scent of lavender. Lady Davenant sat at her writing desk, a stack of letters before her, though her hand trembled too much to write. "Madam," Poirot said gently, bowing slightly, "you are not well. This burden, it crushes you." She lifted her eyes to him, haunted and weary. "Monsieur Poirot, you do not know what you ask." "On the contrary," he replied softly, "I know precisely. You fear that in speaking of Edmund Drake, you will unravel everything you have struggled to preserve. But silence, madam, is the ally of tragedy. It allows the poison to spread." Tears welled in her eyes. He was a good man once, but he came here with demands, with knowledge that could destroy Charles's name, our fortune, everything. There was some connection, documents, letters, something he claimed to possess. And when Charles refused him, he vanished. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "You mean, madam, that Sir Charles silenced him?" She covered her face with her hands. "I do not know. I swear it. But the night he left, there was shouting, terrible shouting, and in the morning he was gone. Charles told us never to speak of it again. And yet," Poirot murmured, "his watch remains. Not gone, but hidden, waiting." Later that day, Poirot sought Evelyn. He found her in the library, staring listlessly at the fire. The room smelled faintly of smoke and old parchment. "Miss Evelyn," Poirot began, "you are young but not blind. You know that secrets weigh upon this house." She turned to him, her eyes full of anguish. "Yes, all my life there's been something unspoken, something that haunted my mother, that made father so harsh. I once overheard a servant mention the name Drake, and when I asked about it, father struck the table and ordered silence. I dared not ask again." Poirot nodded. "And do you not find it curious, mademoiselle, that your inheritance, your very future, seems to lie entangled with this forbidden name?" Her lips trembled. "Do you mean the will? That's why Mr. Langley is here, isn't it? To arrange matters?" "Father refuses to tell me the details." Poirot's mustaches quivered. "Just so. But I tell you this, mademoiselle, the past cannot be erased with ink upon a will. It has a way of pressing forward, of demanding acknowledgement." She looked at him with sudden fear. Do you think Drake was killed here?" Poirot did not answer directly. "I think, mademoiselle, that Drake's absence has left a presence. And presences, when denied, become dangerous." That afternoon, Poirot and Hastings paid another visit to Mr. Barrow, the watchmaker. They wished to know more of Edmund Drake. The old man leaned heavily on his counter, his eyes sharp behind his spectacles. "You say he stayed with the Davenants?" Barrow muttered. "I'm not surprised. He had the air of a man hunting secrets, always asking questions about the estate, the family, the land. Some thought he was writing a book. Others thought, well, that he was digging up something best left buried." Poirot inclined his head. "And he never spoke of his origins?" "Not much. Said he came from London. He had a letter with the Davenant crest upon it. An invitation, I suppose. Beyond that, he kept his affairs close." "Ah," Poirot said softly, "but sometimes, The letters tell their own story. Upon returning to the estate, Poirot asked permission to examine the old correspondence stored in the library. Sir Charles resisted at first, but Poirot's insistence and Lady Davenant's weary nod overcame him. In a dusty cabinet, Poirot discovered a bundle of faded letters bound with twine. Among them was one addressed to Mr. Edmund Drake, dated 15 years prior, in Sir Charles's own hand. The letter spoke of an invitation to discuss matters of heritage and entitlement. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Heritage and entitlement. Ah, Hastings, do you see? Drake may have been more than a mere scholar. Perhaps. Hastings frowned. You mean family? Just so. An illegitimate branch, perhaps, or a claim to the estate. That would explain Sir Charles's fury, his desire to suppress the matter. But then, Hastings said slowly, if Drake was silenced. Poirot raised a finger. Patience, mon ami. Let's not run ahead of the facts. But the pieces, they begin to fit. That evening, the household gathered once more. Poirot, ever the conductor of human drama, chose his moment carefully. Standing near the hearth, he addressed them with quiet authority. Mess Amos, I have been looking into the past. It is never easy, this business of shadows. But shadows, they cling, they lengthen, they betray the shape of what casts them. Edmund Drake, he was not a stranger here. He was invited. He came to speak of heritage, of claims. He was silenced, and his name forbidden. But silence, it is not eternal. Lady Davenant trembled visibly, her eyes fixed on the fire. Evelyn clutched the arm of her chair. Sir Charles's face darkened, and he rose abruptly. Enough, Poirot. You have no right to drag up old ghosts. What is past is past. Poirot's voice was calm, but implacable. No, Sir Charles. What is past is present. The watch, the broken hour. It returns now because the matter is unfinished. Until it is resolved, there can be no peace in this house. Langley set down his pen with a sharp snap. Monsieur Poirot, I must protest. This line of questioning is inflammatory and has no bearing upon the estate's affairs. Poirot turned on him, his gaze piercing. Au contraire, monsieur. It has everything to do with them. For an inheritance built on silence is an inheritance built on sand. At that moment, Lady Davenant cried out, her voice breaking. Charles, for God's sake, tell him. Tell him what happened. Sir Charles stood rigid, his fists clenched. For a long moment, the room was silent save for the ticking of the great clock. At last, he spoke, his voice low and bitter. Drake was a bastard. He came here with papers, letters claiming blood ties to my family, claiming rights. He thought to blackmail me, to destroy my name. I confronted him. We quarreled. He left that night, and I swore he would never be mentioned again. That is all. Poirot's eyes glittered. And yet, Sir Charles, his watch was left behind. And it was not merely lost. It was hidden, broken. Why? Sir Charles glared at him. Perhaps he dropped it in his haste. Perhaps he never cared for it. How should I know? But Poirot noted the tremor in his voice, the sweat beading on his brow. Sir Charles was lying, or concealing something worse. Later, as the household dispersed, Poirot lingered by the mantel clock. He traced its polished surface with a finger, thoughtful. Hastings joined him. Poirot, do you believe Sir Charles? That Drake simply left. Poirot shook his head slowly. Non, Hastings. A man who makes a claim of inheritance does not vanish into the night, and a watch engraved with sentiment is not abandoned lightly. No, Drake met his fate here in this house. The shadows conceal it still, but they cannot do so forever. He glanced toward the staircase, where Lady Davenant had just ascended, her figure bent with sorrow. Mark my words, Hastings, the truth is close. And when it comes, it will not merely concern the past. It will strike at the present, and perhaps at the future of them all. That night, Poirot examined the broken watch once more, under the glow of his lamp. He read again the inscription, "Ed until the last hour." "Until the last hour," he murmured. "And the hour is almost upon us." The watch lay silent, but in Poirot's mind, its broken hands pointed not only to a time, but to a revelation. Shadows of the past had spoken. Now, the truth would demand its moment. Chapter 5: The Hour of Truth. The storm raged across the Davenant estate, a relentless pounding of wind and rain that seemed to echo the turmoil within its walls. Thunder rolled over the hills, and the lightning illuminated the old house in sharp flashes, as though nature itself wished to expose what lay hidden. The drawing-room was heavy with expectation. At Poirot's insistence, the household gathered, Sir Charles pacing like a trapped animal, cigar clenched between his teeth, Lady Davenant pale, her hands twisting a handkerchief until it was nearly torn, Evelyn seated stiffly, her face set in a mask of dread, Alfred Langley with his papers pushed aside, his sharp eyes betraying calculation, and Dr. Keen standing near the mantel, grave and silent. Hastings hovered near Poirot, restless, sensing that the culmination of all these strange days had come at last. Poirot stood at the center, calm and composed, the broken watch gleaming faintly in his hand. "Mess Amos," he began, his voice quiet but carrying it as time that has been silenced, concealed, yet not destroyed. "This watch, broken and mute, has told us a story, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall now recount it to you." He held the watch up, its fractured face catching the firelight. The hands point to 3:20. The casing bears the name of Edmund Drake. The inscription reads, "Until the last hour." And it is indeed at the last hour that truth demands to be heard. Poirot's eyes turned to Sir Charles. "You told us that Drake was a blackmailer, a scoundrel with no claim, who quarreled with you and left. But non, that is not true. He did not leave. He died here, in this house, on that night." A gasp escaped Lady Davenant, and Evelyn cried out softly. Sir Charles froze, his face mottled with anger. "Damn you, Poirot! Lies!" Poirot shook his head gently. "No, Sir Charles. The truth. There was a quarrel. Drake pressed his claim, whether as a blood relation or with documents, I cannot yet say. You grew angry. You struck him, or pushed him in rage. He fell. His head struck the hearth. He died instantly, and at that precise moment, the watch in his pocket shattered at 3:20, the hour of his death. The room was utterly silent save for the storm outside. Poirot continued, "You, Sir Charles, concealed the body. Perhaps you had help. Perhaps it was buried upon the grounds, or spirited away to another place. But you swore your family to silence. Lady Davenant, you obeyed, out of fear, out of loyalty, out of love. And you, poor madam, have borne the weight ever since." Lady Davenant covered her face with her hands, sobbing. "It is true. God forgive me, it is true." Poirot's gaze swept to Langley. "And you, monsieur, you discovered enough of the truth to hold Sir Charles in your grip. You saw the old letters, you guessed at the scandal. You used it as leverage to secure your place here. Your power was not merely legal, it was moral blackmail. You fed upon the silence, as Drake once tried to do." Langley's jaw tightened, but he did not speak. Poirot turned to Evelyn, his voice softening. "Mademoiselle, you are innocent. You knew nothing, though you sensed the shadow. Your father's severity, your mother's melancholy, all grew from this hidden crime. You thought yourself cursed with mystery, but you were only the victim of silence." Her tears fell freely. "All my life I felt it. The shadow. Now I know." Poirot regarded Dr. Keen. "And you, doctor, you suspected. You heard Lady Davenant's murmurs in her fevers, her guilt in her dreams. Yet you said nothing. Out of pity, yes, but pity can bind as strongly as malice." The doctor lowered his head. "I thought to protect her." Poirot drew himself upright. his voice now firm, commanding. "And so it is clear? Edmund Drake died here. His death was an accident, perhaps, but his concealment was not. It was silence that turned a misfortune into a crime. For years, the watch lay hidden, a mute witness. Now it has returned to point once more to its hour, the hour of truth." Sir Charles's shoulders slumped. His voice, when it came, was broken. "I never meant to kill him. He lunged at me. I pushed him aside, he fell. It was over in seconds. I panicked. Margaret saw. She begged me to confess, but I thought only of ruin, of disgrace. So I hit him." The confession hung in the air like smoke. Lady Davenant sobbed softly. Evelyn covered her face, and Langley sat still as stone. Poirot laid the watch gently on the table. "This watch will never tick again. Its hands are fixed, frozen at 3:20. A reminder of folly, of silence, of concealment. But you, Amias Amos, you may yet move forward. The truth is revealed. Justice will follow its course. But at last the shadow is lifted." The storm outside began to ebb. The wind lessened. The rain fell more softly. The great mantel clock ticked steadily, its sound now oddly comforting, a reminder that time moves on, unbroken. Evelyn rose to her feet, pale but resolute. "Then let us face it. Whatever comes, we must not hide again." Poirot inclined his head. "Très bien, mademoiselle. That is the courage that redeems. Truth, though bitter, is always the cure." He turned to Hastings, his eyes twinkling faintly despite the solemnity. "You see, mon ami, once again it is the smallest detail that unravels the greatest of mysteries. As in the murder of Roger Ackroyd, as in the mystery of the blue train, as in murder in Mesopotamia, it is always the overlooked, the broken, the trivial, that betrays the whole truth." Poirot straightened, his voice growing deliberate, as though speaking not only to the room, but beyond it. "And you, Mas Shares Amos, who have listened to this tale, you see how silence breeds shadows, and truth brings light. If you would walk further with me, if you would hear more mysteries unraveled by the little gray cells, then stay with me. Subscribe so that you do not miss the next case, the next revelation. For time is always moving, and the mysteries, they never cease. Until we meet again, take care and remember, even a broken watch still points to its hour." The fire crackled. The mantel clock ticked, and in the quiet that followed, the Davenant estate seemed to breathe for the first time in years, its secrets laid bare, its shadows dispelled. The enigma of the broken watch had ended.